And it's a brand new day, but 7 days already in the month of November, perhaps some would say the penultimate month in 2025. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Kelly Egiga, and guess what? It's a Red Friday, and that's because Bukola is looking all red. I didn't get the memo. Bukola and Emmanuel, our producer, are on red. I didn't get the memo, guys.
Well, you didn't check your mail. If you checked your mail, Kelly, you'd have gotten the memo. It's a beautiful Friday morning, my favorite day of the week anyway. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and quite a lot seems to have unfolded in the last 24 hours. And we're here to unpack and make sense of all of that for you, as it is characteristic of us here at Channels Television.
Absolutely.
So, Kelly, what have you been tracking?
Yes, I mean, so it's the fact that, this Nigeria has been unsettled for perhaps the last 3 weeks or more. But the latest to that dimension is that Mr. President yesterday had to sort of speak to Nigerians, and then again he's promising that he's going to put an end to terrorism and criminality. Perhaps let's take a listen to Mr. President, and then we'll just come and do some analysis for you this morning.
The most important thing is the fact that despite the political headwind and the fear of our people, we continue to engage with our partners. The success of the 2.3 billion bond, subscription, oversubscribed, is the most at this stage. So the task ahead is immense. We are engaging the world diplomatically, and we assure all of you that we will, defeat terrorism in this country. The task ahead is immense, but it's our resolve to move forward with unity and purpose, guided by renewed hope agenda to build a prosperous, inclusive and resilient Nigeria.
All right, so that's Nigeria's number one citizen, President Bola Tinubu, there, reassuring perhaps Nigerians and the international community. I think that I caught that phrase there where he is promising to engage more with our partners. Those were the exact words of Mr. President. And I do not envy his position at this time, because I'm sure he's caught up between, some would say perhaps the deep blue sea and I don't know, how's that phrase said again? The deep blue sea and the devil. And I'm referring to allies and partnerships. For instance, how he's able to navigate that relationship, that diplomatic relationship, I should be precise, with the US, which is perhaps one of our greatest or largest investor, and now China, so how he's able to manipulate and maneuver, and ensure we maintain that cordial relationship with both nations who are world powerhouses. They've been battling for the number 1 and 2 spots. In terms of the economy, you always see the US top, and then sometimes you see China, take the topmost spot. So, as I said, I do not envy him at this point in time, and he's promising to engage more with both nations or partners, international community. I hope that we get to do that, because we had queried him, Mr. President, for not attending the UN General Assembly. So I hope that we get to see him have more engagement with these partners of ours. And so Nigerians, when you see your president having to travel or make some of those trips, do not be surprised, because he needs to perhaps indeed engage more. But beyond those words, beyond the rhetorics, is action. Nigerians want to see Mr. President walk the talk. We always get to see them make these promises, make these assurances. I feel a bit disappointed when he had to mention when he had to mention the renewed hope agenda. I mean, I don't think that was indeed really necessary, Bukola.
Well, quite a lot to process from Mr. President's assurance. How comfortable Nigerians are, or how assured Nigerians are from those words from Mr. President, that's another matter entirely. That's another subject of debate. But indeed, the Minister of Information doubled down on Mr. President's position as well when he said at another fora yesterday that Nigeria is, deploying diplomatic engagement in order to tackle this narrative, in the United States that there is alleged Christian genocide in the country. But what we did not see from both sides, of the federal government's expression of resolve is, the acknowledgement of the news that came through yesterday that the U.S. military is proposing 3 levels of deployment of troops to Nigeria. There is medium, there is light, and then there is the heavy option. It's important that we begin to also talk about that. So it appears as if, whether you like it or not, there is a proposed plan that is being unveiled for the deployment of U.S. troops to Nigeria. On the one hand, we understand that under the heavy option, Washington would deploy an aircraft carrier strike group to the Gulf of Guinea, supported by fighter jets or long-range bombers to hit militant targets deep inside northern Nigeria. The minimum option proposes the use of MQ-9 Reaper and MQ-1 Predator drones for targeted strikes on insurgent camps, convoys, and vehicles. The drones would operate with U.S. intelligence support to ensure precise and timely attacks. But the light option, on the other hand, focuses on intelligence sharing, logistics support, and joint operations. We would like to believe, in the spirit of optimism, that when the government says we're engaging diplomatically, they're also engaging with their U.S. counterpart, either at the executive or the Congress level, on these proposed options to deploy to Nigeria. But what we are not hearing, or what we are yet to see, is results on the home front, in the rural areas, in the hinterland, where the people are vulnerable to attacks. I would have loved to hear, for instance, the president acknowledge the most recent attack in Benue State, for instance. And that makes us wonder, how much value is placed on human life. Kelly, yeah. I saw pictures exclusively shared with me from residents of that community, portraying the attack. Those people were slaughtered. I believe those pictures should be shared to the Minister of Defense, Minister of State for Defense, the President, the committees on defense, both at the upper and at the lower chambers, such that, they can empathize and go beyond empathizing with the people in these areas. These are human beings. These are people with dreams, with equal rights. As citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who should have contributed their quota to our dream of a transformed Nigeria, where everyone has access to all the basic things of life, and the opportunities to becoming someone without necessarily knowing anyone. That big question mark continues to, dog the commitment of the Nigerian government to security in Nigeria. Why should we normalize attacks, unprovoked attacks on communities? I continue to ask, what is the state of security architecture in these communities? Are there stations in these communities, police stations? Why, for instance, did the military exit Ohimini local government area on Tuesday, even though intelligence had come through that the attackers were coming? These are questions that we would continue to put through to the administration, regardless of the rhetoric that is being told us on television, at Federal Executive Council meetings, and on the floor of the chamber, or even by the leaders of the so-called security architecture. It is really disheartening to see how vulnerable these people are, Kelly. And we shouldn't stop talking about them because we sit here in our comfort zones, but there are people who cannot sleep with their two eyes closed in their areas.
I wouldn't lie. I think when I came back from Maiduguri, to a large extent, I was traumatized by the images and pictures I saw at the Bama IDP camp, and I think another camp, I think it's El Skimi IDP camp in Maiduguri as well. Those images have not left my heart just yet, because it got to, perhaps I got to see the reality of people. It's different when you just see it in the news. It's different when you just get to read it in the papers, but seeing the havoc of what Nigerians have been made to go through. And as Bukola has also emphasized, beyond the rhetorics, beyond the media briefings and press conferences, is that Nigerians want to see Mr. President and all the leaders indeed get to put action beyond those conversations. Well, that's not the only thing we're tracking. We are barely a few hours away from the November 8th governorship elections in Anambra State, and all eyes are right there in that state. For many reasons, Anambra is really very unique. Geographically, one of the smallest, but guess what? It's a very, very unique and powerful state. It's a state that, on the side, I should just say this, it has so many big names. And by big names, I mean very, very rich businessmen and women, but more of the men. I mean, I'll try not to mention names because I've been in that city very recently when I went to film my Amazing Africans. So it's a state that really has some very strong men. You know, business-wise, these guys are billionaires, you know. But then again, a lot of persons have questioned just why that state is yet to harness all of the potentialities that it should be harnessing and utilizing. So again, we are at the polls, and Nigerians resident in Anambra State are set to vote tomorrow. So all eyes are right there in Anambra State, and we will bring you a special live coverage of the elections in Anambra State. So you have to stay here with us because we have all of the perspectives, commentaries, and live updates as we get them right there from Anambra State.
Indeed, you've seen there on your screen sensitive and non-sensitive election materials are being deployed throughout the 21 local government areas. We understand that 16 candidates from 16 political parties, you know, are contesting for the top seat in Anambra State, and we've got you covered. Really, we also understand that about 45 to 55,000 policemen have been deployed to ensure security in Anambra State. So our studios will open pretty early on election day. But there's much more that we have for you on the show this morning. Besides the conversation on the Anambra election, we also have other, you know, levels of engagement in other segments.
So again, we get to take a look at allegations of Christian genocide, or the Christian genocide claims. We get some perspectives from the camp of the opposition party now, the ADC. We get some analysis on the program right here this morning.
And besides that, Ford Foundation celebrates its 65th anniversary, years of commitment to contributing to, you know, advocacy on gender equity, justice, inclusion. And so we'll, you know, be speaking with a representative of the foundation this morning to find out, you know, just how well you know, the programs of the organization have been impactful in Nigeria, and of course other activities lined up for this 65th anniversary celebration.
And because it's a Friday, we get to step down a bit and have some sort of soft conversation, because the weekend is here, ladies and gentlemen. We get to talk music. So we have so much to unpack for you guys. You want to stick around here as to feature a recording artist on the show. So hey, you, the Gen Zs, the younger generation, I mean, you can relate with music. I mean, so we're going to talk about all of this, and perhaps even the role of AI in the creative space as well. That's an outlook of our package this Friday morning. But let's get to our headlines this morning from our national dailies. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. Let's get to take a look at some of the papers this Friday morning. Mr. Dayo Akintobi joins us live on the program. Public Affairs Analyst joins us live. Well, good to see you this Friday morning, Mr. Akintobi.
Always a pleasure to be here. TGIF.
It's a Black Friday, Mr. Akintobi. You know, I've never ceased to talk about your amazing costume. You look good.
You always humble me. Thank you very much.
Well, the interesting thing is that...
I didn't get the memo on the red, by the way.
Oh, you didn't get it as well?
I would have come in red.
All right, so let's get things started with the New Telegraph this Friday morning. And it leads with this writer says, "We are engaging world diplomatically. We will defeat terrorism." And that's coming from President Bola Tinubu. We are engaging the world. Well, Trump's threats, it says we are engaging world diplomatically. We will defeat terrorism. Tinubu says, report, U.S. military draws up airstrike plans for Nigeria as U.S. legislators push for sanctions on Miyetti Allah, Fulani militias, others. FG taking U.S. designation of Nigeria as CPC seriously. That's coming from the Minister of Information. Well, Mr. Akintobi, where the conversation is headed now is that there's perhaps some sort of pressure for the Nigerian government to put a ban on Sharia laws. And as I said earlier, I do not envy Mr. President's position right now, because I'm wondering how is he able to navigate these power blocks and houses. I mean, you don't want to be caught up between the devil and the deep blue sea. So where does Mr. President and Nigeria go from here? And how does he get to handle this very sensitive issue or issues? Because we do also have an election around the corner, and Nigerian politicians do not play and joke when the elections are here.
Well, I think the president has started handling it, first of all, by addressing Nigerians indirectly through the Federal Executive Committee yesterday. And if you listen to what he said, he basically articulated the government's position about this current trending issue. By saying we're engaging our allies diplomatically, we're asking them to collaborate with us to solve this problem, he basically is acknowledging the fact that we do have a problem, which all Nigerians have known that, and that it shouldn't be framed so narrowly as Christians being exposed to genocidal killings, that this is a much broader and deeper problem and requires much more nuanced solutions that have defied Nigerian interventions up till this moment. Now, the way I see it is that President Trump's threat has galvanized action at last. It seems we've been comatose on this issue, or a bit nonchalant about this issue for too long. So the threat of a foreign power saying we will come and do what you have failed to do seems to have lit a fire under our government's inertia, to where now we see a concerted effort, or at least a resolute commitment to actually doing something
in the body language of the
absolutely, because nothing would be more debilitating to the image of a sovereign nation than for a foreigner to come in on its own unilateral interest and come and solve a problem in your own country. So of course nobody's going to sit back and watch that happen. So now you see a move towards trying to shore up the defenses, to come up with solutions, which we now say, okay, perhaps we can't handle this on our own, maybe we should ask for help. But the thing that surprises me is if you look at what Bukola was talking about earlier, that American military has laid out three modes of intervention: light, medium, and heavy. And one of them talks about the fact that they will deploy fighter jets to the heart of the terrorists' enclave. And I tell myself, that means America knows where the terrorists are. If America knows where the terrorists are, guess what? Nigerian government must know where the terrorists are too. I know America has satellites and they have drones and they have all kinds of technology that enables them to have the kind of intelligence that is second to none. But I don't believe they can know more about our own internal issues than our own government can. So you ask yourself, if America says we know where they are and we're going to go and eliminate them, what has stopped our government? 2.5 years of this administration, 8 years of the previous administration, so many years of the PDP administration when this problem became rife. What has stopped them? Is it lack of political will? Is it lack of morale within the military? Is it lack of fighting competence? What is it that has stopped us from addressing this problem before it now escaped our borders and became a matter of international concern? I've never been one to believe that a foreign power should interfere in the internal issues of an independent sovereign nation. But if what Trump's pronouncements have achieved is just simply galvanizing us into action, which it seems to have. You see a flurry of activity all of a sudden. Yesterday, the Chief of Air Staff talked about the professionalism of his air fleet and his pilots and what they will begin to do. And you see the Chief of Defense Staff. You see a flurry of activity that says, yes, we now want to do something about this. So if that's all we've achieved by President Trump's pronouncements, if it galvanizes us into action to finally begin to address these issues, then it's a good thing.
And you know, you made some very compelling points earlier when you asked why the Nigerian government over the years, through different administrations, have been unable to go to those terrorist enclaves and indeed carry out a decisive operation, especially because we've had negotiators who had gone to these enclaves, you know, and made a case for the terrorists.
Yes.
So it's a really compelling question. And I also recall amid conversations with members of past administrations, they've talked about these terrorists having human shields.
Yes.
And all of that, but those answers have never really been satisfactory.
No.
So we look forward to how the government will engage diplomatically, quote and unquote, with their US partner. But let's go to The Guardian this morning. And The Guardian is reflecting on something entirely different, but just as important.
Guardian always does.
Yeah. Right. Nigeria's press at 166. Now, that's a very interesting tally, you know, from right before independence. Old battles linger amid new threats, fight for survival and truth. And, you know, the press has played key roles through the ages. It's 166 that, you know, the Guardian is telling us that we're celebrating. Some of us do not even,
I mean,
we don't even know, right?
To realize.
So, Mr. Akintobi, walk us through all of those phases that the press has been through and what the press is dealing with right now.
There's a general perception in the public that press freedom is under assault of late. But I think it's primarily because of the rise of the internet and the fact that everybody is a journalist nowadays. You have a mobile phone, you have some data, and you begin to be able to break news from anywhere at any time in any manner. And much of it generally is not professional or ethical. So there's a blurring of the lines between professional journalism, the way we were trained. We understand the rules of the craft, but the citizen journalist doesn't. And a lot of what you see when you hear people being arrested for defamation, criminal defamation, people who are willy-nilly posting things on the internet that are not verified, that cannot be confirmed, you begin to see that there seems to be a groundswell of interdiction on freedom of speech. But the truth is, if you look at the core journalist who is trained and knows his craft, you will find that violations are few and far between. We practice our craft professionally, and when we do that, our freedoms or our ability to practice our trade is not really threatened. I don't see any administration who's willy-nilly arresting bona fide journalists for speaking out and reporting the truth. Where the issue comes up, as I've said, is the citizen journalist or the non-professional who is playing in a professional field without understanding the rules that govern the trade. And that is why it looks like people are being arrested for saying things, or people are being charged to court for saying things. So I think that in the 160 odd years of the Nigerian press, we have evolved over time. I mean, in the military era, there was definitely an open season on journalists to where, you know, your life was definitely at risk if you spoke against the administrations in power then under military rule. But once we got to democracy, I think that our politicians recognize the fact that the media is a partner in progress in democracy, not an enemy. And they've learned that the more they collaborate with the media, the better. We're all in the same role. We all work towards development and progress of Nigeria. But the reason they call the media the fourth estate of the realm is that it has a checks and balance role in terms of, after the three arms of government, the media plays a role of ensuring accountability and transparency in the political space.
Maybe two questions in one. Do you think that perhaps our laws has also helped to limit how expressive the professional journalists are? Do you think our laws perhaps, I mean, sometimes it's difficult trying to explain to Nigerians that, look, some make comparisons. Can't you see what CNN is doing? Can't you see how they're opposing Donald Trump? Can't you see what Al Jazeera is doing? So do you think perhaps our laws some sort of limit how we are able to express ourselves? And then the other question would be, for the bloggers, for the influencers, for the journalists from the comfort of their bedrooms, there's that debate as to perhaps should it be regulated or not. Where do you stand?
Well, the funny thing about the internet is the wild, wild west. But there's a fear of regulation because the moment you begin to regulate it, you threaten free speech. Because even in spite of the complaints about citizen journalism not being professional, the Constitution still guarantees the right to free speech. But no right or no freedom is absolute. Because you have the right to swing your fist anywhere, anyhow, anytime. But that right ends, guess where? Where my nose begins. So there is a restriction on how free you are to swing your fist. So I don't think freedom should be totally absolute. And when they're absolute, you see what happens, especially in a place like the internet where you have the anonymity of the online cyberspace world where you can do and undo anonymously without anybody knowing who you are. You can create mayhem. So there does need to be some oversight, and I think all governments across the world recognize that. So it's a fine balancing act. How do you regulate while at the same time not restricting constitutional protections? Now, in terms of laws limiting our ability to be more vibrant in this craft, I don't think there's any restrictive law that I am aware of that inhibits our practice. I think we are the ones that need to continually push the envelope. I see some journalists today who are doing fantastic work in terms of putting the feet to the fire of people in power, demanding accountability. Maybe the CNN and the Al Jazeeras that you mentioned, perhaps they are better funded, perhaps they are better trained, perhaps they have more wider resources to rely on. But I don't see that they're doing any better at investigating the issues that concern the quality of life of their people. I don't think they're doing any better than we are. And if we are inhibited by anything, it's not by laws on the books. I mean, we have tools. We look at things like Freedom of Information Act. Yeah. That is a law that you can use as a journalist to extract information that perhaps government doesn't want you to have, things that they are hiding, that they don't want the public to know. There are some laws on the books that empower us to be able to go ahead and dig in places where, shine a light. That is what journalism is all about, shining a light where there's darkness. It is about bringing the truth to the world. And I believe we do that, and I don't think there's any specific stricture on our ability to do that beyond we limiting ourselves. I don't think there's a corporate or wholesale endeavor to restrict or inhibit our ability to ferret out the truth.
And you know that there are very clear lines, although some would argue that they're blurry, between you know, clamping down or if you like, constructive criticism, accountability through investigative journalism,
yes,
and a put-me-down approach to, you know, citizen journalism, which is not a brand of professional journalism anyway, you know, where someone just sits in the comfort of their room and, you know, calls leaders names. It is the accountability part that, you know, the body of journalists is saying, do not clamp down on dissent, do not clamp down on constructive criticism,
yes,
and let, you know, journalism thrive.
Absolutely.
It's a very important conversation that should be mainstreamed time and again.
Yes.
But what it appears as if we're not quite done yet with, you know, the Trump's designation of Nigeria as a CPC, a country of particular concern, and that's what Daily Independent is focusing on this morning. Will overcome Trump's CPC designation, Tinubu assures, and there are a host of riders. Says diplomatic engagement with global partners ongoing. Well, the front page of Daily Independent is not readily available at this time, but perhaps we could look at other stories on the front page of The Guardian. Things that we'll be looking at ahead of on the program. Anxiety, tight security as Anambra elects new governor tomorrow. We've had assurances from INEC, we've had assurances from the, you know, security agencies in Anambra State. But when you look at, you know, that state traditionally and all of the factors that, you know, come together to ensure the election, and indeed, you know, mixed with the current security challenges in Anambra State, what are your expectations ahead of tomorrow's exercise?
Before I address that, let me talk quickly about what you mentioned on the last headline about the president saying we will approach this problem diplomatically. And the question I ask is, any diplomatic intervention you engage in now is hampered by the fact that you don't have ambassadors. Because ambassadors basically are the front line of diplomacy. And the fact that you don't have them in place means that any engagement you're going to have with your foreign allies is already right from the beginning off the back foot. So that's an issue. Now, in terms of Anambra, historically from, I think, 2003, 2007, as far as I remember, 2011, two issues have plagued Anambra elections. Primarily, number one is logistics in terms of quick delivery, early delivery, on-time delivery of sensitive election materials, on-time commencement of the election. I believe INEC regulations require their ad hoc staff to be on ground at 7 or 7:30 or thereabouts, and for voting to commence at 8 or 8:30 or thereabouts. It has never happened in Anambra. Election materials are always come late. Ad hoc staff get there behind time. Elections start late. In some polling units, elections don't hold at all because materials didn't get there. The second primary issue in Anambra, and this is my concern for tomorrow's election, is voter apathy. Anambra has recorded continuously low participation in terms of voter turnout, and has come about with the untenable situation, which is abhorrent in democracy, that whoever is ruling Anambra has been voted in by a minority to rule over the majority. And that's simply because the people are not interested in the electoral process. Maybe there have been various studies that show that there are various reasons for voter apathy. Some of the electorate believes that the results are already pre-written and preordained. Some believe that their vote won't count, it won't make a difference. Some believe that the incumbent has already rigged. Some believe there'll be intimidation, there'll be vote buying. There are various reasons for why people shun elections. But it has a very negative impact on the eventual outcome of how the results play out. So this is my concern for Anambra for tomorrow. I was listening to the new INEC chairman, Professor Joash Mupito, and his reassurances inspire some confidence that INEC has done its part to be well prepared. He has assured that in terms of security, they are deploying 45,000 policemen and I think 10,000 civil defense officers. They've assured that even one or two areas that are security plagued, that the voters there can go. They've arranged for them to go to the council offices to vote as opposed to the wards where they'll be protected. So the INEC chairman is saying, for our part, we've done everything. And we saw a video yesterday of the sensitive election materials being brought out of the CBN office. And I saw the process by which the REC authenticated each of them and was verified by each of the party agents. So there seems to be process, due process, accountability, transparency so far. So I think we should give the new INEC chairman benefit of the doubt. It looks like he's hit the ground running and he's approaching this from the right perspective. So I put the onus back on the electorate. That, look, I was watching the rallies of the different parties. I watched APC rally, I watched APGA rally, I watched, I think, ADC. Yes, ADC rally. And there seems to be an energy, especially in the incumbents campaign. The energy and the crowd looked organic. It didn't look like it was bought. And there was a lot of excitement in the air. And it looks like people are really happy with what the incumbent has been doing. But likewise, APC, probably being the party in the center, their rally also looked vibrant and colorful. And there was a lot of music. There was a lot of excitement. So I asked myself that all these people who turned out in the hot sun to come and join this campaign and this rally and having fun, and they're all hailing their candidate, where will they be tomorrow? Why do we have this dichotomy between campaign excitement and poor turnout at the polls? Where is the disconnect coming from? Because historically, that's what has happened in Anambra. So we're hoping tomorrow INEC will play its part. The electorate will come out. The electorate will come out and vote en masse. And that the police and the security architecture will play their part to make sure there's no voter intimidation, that no one is harassed, that they protect and defend anyone who wants to cast their vote, to allow that person to vote. I also want to see this issue of the technology that INEC has, BVAS, for example, for accreditation of voters. If BVAS doesn't accredit you, you shouldn't vote. Not that, oh, it didn't work, bring your voter card, this, that, let's do a walk-around solution. No, if BVAS doesn't accredit you, then you shouldn't vote. Then IREV should work as intended so that what is documented at the polls. I advise Anambra voters, after you voted, stay there, don't leave. Stay at the polls, the polling unit, until the votes are counted, until they are reported, logged into IREV and uploaded. Then go and confirm that what you witnessed yourself firsthand is what is showing on the reporting portal. And
you have laid out the levels of assessment of the new INEC chairman. By this time tomorrow, we'll begin to know whether it's a new man, a new sheriff in town, or it's business as usual. When we begin to see the deployment of materials, logistics, and indeed the functioning of the BVAS, of course, we can tell. Yes. Now we have Daily Independent, and we've reflected exhaustively on the Trump's designation of Nigeria as CPC. But at the top of the nameplate, we have this one. Senate asks NAFDAC to ban sachet alcohol by December. Now, there's a tricky line between, putting people out of business, out of employment, and of course, the concern about youth indulgence. Where are you in this particular position held by the Senate?
There's a drug problem, there's an addiction problem, there's an abuse problem among Nigeria's youth, between hard drugs, alcohol, whatever substance can be abused, there's a problem among Nigerian youth. And so desperate times call for desperate measures. The prevalence of sachet alcohol, what it does is that it makes it inexpensive to buy. In the past, when they packaged them in big bottles, you needed a lot of money to be able to afford a bottle. But this idea of sachet alcohol came from when they did sachet milk and reduced the packaging of commodities to make it more affordable for people whose spending power was limited. And it was such a raging success with things like milk, things like noodles, things like coffee. You saw reduced packaging so that you didn't need a whole lot of money to buy a quantity that would last you for months. You could buy single serving helpings for next to nothing. So of course the alcohol distillers gave themselves some brain and said, we can duplicate this, and they did. The issue, of course, is that it has exacerbated Nigeria's abuse problem because it's readily available. Where do I stand on it? The ban has been in place for a while. They just want...
Extend.
Yes, it's been extended till December, and they say we shouldn't extend it any longer. Well, there's a fine balance between entrepreneurship, capitalism, wanting to be able to sell goods and products versus consumer protection.
Yeah. All right. We must anchor at this point, and it's been, you know, a thought-provoking engagement, as it is always with you, Mr. Akintobi. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
On the program. Mr. Dayo Akintobi is a very dependable public affairs analyst. We'll take a moment now. When we return, of course, we'll continue our week-long reflections on the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. How reassuring is the administration's position that we're making efforts to engage with our foreign partners? We'll have answers to that after this break. Join us again. Welcome back. And so we continue with our conversation on efforts by the federal government to engage with its foreign partners in order to resolve what now seems to be a diplomatic situation with the U.S. over the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. There have been varied reactions to this, and we continue to get more perspectives. And joining us on the program this morning is Chieftain of the African Democratic Congress, Chief Dele Momodu, who joins us virtually. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program, Mr. Momodu.
Good morning, and how are you today?
Very well, thank you, and we hope that you're doing well as well.
Yes, I'm trying. I've been on a long trip, so I'm a bit tired, but then we must pick up for our country.
Okay, you get some strength as soon as you get into this conversation. We've seen your piece where you are urging the federal government to quit politics. But there is a concerted effort, either by the ministers or the president speaking to this. And we've also heard that there's a rallying move to now appoint ambassadors to the foreign missions abroad. Isn't this satisfactory?
Well, I feel it's a bit too late, but better late than never. A lot of us in opposition, we've always advised our government as a matter of patriotism. But they dismiss opposition as irritants, busybodies, charlatans, and now the chicken has come home to roost. So I wrote my piece, I think 2 nights ago. As always, I try to make interventions from every now and then, if I have the opportunity. And my position is that it is not enough saying we want to appoint ambassadors. What government needs to do is to rally its best brains. Nigeria is overblessed with some of the most brilliant human beings on this planet. And a lot of Nigerians are very exposed, and they have privileges all over the world that they enjoy. They have contacts, they have their networks. So my advice to the president is don't make it politics as usual. Reach out to those people, whether they are in your party or not. And I mentioned some names. If you read my piece, which was not a partisan list. The people they should reach out to, men of timber and caliber. Because when you speak at the international level, when you speak, your message is not enough. Your message will resonate if the messenger is appropriate. A lot of the cronies that I see around the president are people who do not have that kind of credibility. Some of them will push themselves again at the president and, oh yes, we can go to Washington, we can go to London, we can go to Paris, we can go to Russia, we can go everywhere, and we'll be able to know the president must go on out and deliver a team A for Nigeria. If he does not do that, we're wasting time. And then the videos of President Trump that I have watched, it is beyond just the usual let's talk. I think he's convinced about the document that have already been presented to him. He's convinced that the Nigerian government is not serious. He's convinced that we're not ready. And he's convinced that we will try to buy time and then return to our usual hanky-panky. So that is why I wrote that thing. And I hope that the president will see it and see it in good faith and act on it.
Well, Chief, I mean, some of the names you have mentioned, I was trying to take a look at that list to see if your name is there, but...
I said it clearly that I'm not interested in anything. No,
but Chief, you have the capacity. You have the capacity. You're a veteran journalist. I think you should be open to working with this current administration.
No, people will get a wrong signal. Once I bring myself into it, I'm not interested, and I'm saying it with all emphasis.
Okay, Chief.
I am not interested. I do other things for my country behind the scenes, globally.
All right.
With my own funding. I don't go to government. I don't beg for things from government. I love my country passionately.
All right, Chief.
That is why I can resist the temptation of being in government where people think, oh yes, you can become a billionaire overnight. I am not interested.
Yes, Chief. Let's take the words of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy. He has been quoted as saying that never negotiate under pressure. And those words I always hold dear to my heart. I imagine that Mr. President would be under a lot of pressure. How do you advise that he gets to handle this pressure, especially the fact that he is faced by strong power blocks, the US on one hand, and there's China, who has sort of been funding some of our infrastructure projects in very recent times, Chief?
That is why he needs Team A within. In the days of tribulations, you run to the elders of the house. I can tell you for free that number one on that list of people he must reach out to will be former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who after Nelson Mandela, I believe is the greatest African statesman. You have Chief Emeka Yaku, who was Commonwealth Secretary General so many years ago, and God has preserved his life for us. So on an occasion such as this, they need to reach out. They need to reach out to powerful Christian groups. And there is a name that will come up, Lieutenant General Theophilus Yakubu Danjuma. These are very, very wealthy Christians and who have a voice, who can speak globally, and they will listen to them. Is it because they are bringing these things from the religious angle? Yes, it's convenient for us. It's very convenient for us to say, oh, Muslims are being killed, Christians are being killed, but most Nigerians be killed at all. Nigerians are being killed. In Nigeria today, we are indifferent. Even if they announce, oh, 1,000 people killed in Benue, life continues as usual. In Plateau, life continues as usual. In Taraba, in Adamawa, and so on and so forth. So the president needs to get people who have the capacity to speak and will be listened to, not all these political jobbers. That's why I say the president is very good at politicking. Oh, he can get all governors in Nigeria today to join APC. But we have passed that stage now. 2 weeks ago, if anybody told you that President Tinubu will be in this precarious situation, or you would have said, no, it's not possible. But I saw him speaking last night, and I must confess, I felt for him, because this is not the best of times to be the president of Nigeria. He now has to put on the thinking cap for himself, for his team, and for all of us in Nigeria.
Well, Chief, I share your sentiments. These are indeed very interesting times for Nigeria and Mr. President as well. But you are in the opposition, and there are those who are in government who are pointing fingers to the opposition being behind some of these claims and perhaps facilitating or feeding the likes of the U.S. And the Trump administration with information. So I wonder how you respond to that, because I imagine that the ADC, which is the party that you now fly their colors, would be happy that all of this is playing out barely 2 years to an election. Isn't that correct?
Look, my brother, anyone who says opposition is behind this is just being clever by half. How can opposition that is trying to put its acts together now have time to go to Washington? Those who did it have come out openly. They've come out. I read yesterday about a bishop from Benue, and I've spoken to some high-level contacts who confirmed that it's a powerful Christian lobby group from Nigeria that reached out to Washington. So anyone blaming opposition, of course, everything in Nigeria, when it is not, if APC not blaming its own immediate predecessor, a man who has gone to join his ancestors, former President Muhammadu Buhari, they are blaming him for abandoning a useless country on them, a very terrible economy to them. There will always be blame games in politics. But this is the time for the president to ignore all those people who just, they are rabble-rousers, they just go around trying to terrorize the opposition. But now they are being terrorized from America. So that's the way of God. The person you cannot catch, there is someone who will catch him for you. That is why when I read comments, even under what I wrote, when I read comments, everybody is begging America, please come to Nigeria. It's only patriots who are now fighting that, no, this is beyond ruling party or opposition party fracas. It is about our country and the future of our nation. So let's stop playing politics and let us face President Donald Trump and bring out the facts. Too many Nigerians have died, and the Christians who believe they are in the minority and they are being wiped out, they are the ones who came together. You know, if you know of a man called Israel Buba in Jos, I've been to his church before, he has screamed himself hoarse on this matter, that Christians are being targeted, are being wiped out. He never said Muslims too are not being killed, but Muslim lives become so useless, so valueless, that even when the 700 people have died, the president can travel tonight. No empathy, no sympathy. That is what opposition talks about, and it has nothing to do with politics. So let's get serious for once. So it's not, it has reached a stage now where we're now becoming almost like Gaza, like Iran, like Lebanon and all those places where there have been such, attacks in the past. I pray that this cup will pass over us, like we read in the Bible. Let this called Passover virus. Because once this thing starts, the end is never good.
Yeah.
So, Chief Momodu, let's begin to piggyback on some of the things that have happened in the last 24 hours. We've seen the U.S. Congress sanction 12 Nigerian governors. We've seen sanctions imposed on organizations like Amiyeti Allah and Kautal Hori over what the U.S. terms complicity in the alleged killing of Christians. Senator Ted Cruz himself on his verified Twitter handle has vowed to expose Nigerian government officials who are complicit in the alleged Christian genocide taking place in Nigeria. Just moments ago, our guests, reflected on the proposal of the U.S. military on the deployment of troops to Nigeria and said if the U.S. is saying that they will deploy aircraft to those camps, to raid those camps, that means that they indeed know where the terrorists are. Why hasn't the Nigerian government over the years demonstrated this level of commitment to ending the killings in Nigeria? And how are you seeing the actions that have been happening in the last 24 hours following the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern?
I mean, starting with the sanctions, maybe for once our political leaders will get sober and less giddy. All the gra-gra. They are too arrogant. They speak with the authority of God. They speak down on their people. They belch all kinds of nonsense on their people as if they are God. So maybe for once they will begin to see reason. President Tinubu knows. Look at the number of people who have died in Borno, the people who have died in Niger. I hear even Kwara, next door to Oyo State, is no longer safe. And yet nothing has happened. So they know where these people are. Did we not see some people, a video recently of bandits with their guns on motorbikes going to attend the wedding somewhere? I don't know, maybe it was Katsina or wherever. I've never seen such embarrassment in my life. Bandits with AK-47 on motorbike, well dressed, and going to jollificate at a wedding. And they came in, enjoyed, and went back to where they came from. Nothing happened. So how do you blame the US for that? For me, the chicken has come home to roost. Time for blame game is over. Nigeria was handed over to President Tinubu intact, whether in perfect condition or in feverish condition. Nigeria was given to him by Buhari, a member of his own party, co-founder of his own party. And if they are still blaming APC, is blaming APC. And yet APC is saying everybody to come and join them. And people are joining them like Mumu. Then you should know that something's wrong with our country. And that is why go on the internet and go and read comments under President Trump's speeches. Nigerians are practically begging from every part of the world that Nigeria should be invaded. Why would Nigerians want their country invaded? Because they seem helpless and hopeless. Anytime I watch my friend, the governor of Plateau State, whenever Plateau is bereaved, I always feel like crying for him. Frustrated, hopeless, helpless. Yet they want all these people to come and join the party that has not been able to protect their property, that have not been able to protect their lives. That's why my message to the president, let us stop this politicking. There is life outside power. There will be life after 2027, whether you win or you don't win. We fought for democracy. People died for this democracy. So let the president remember that and leave Nigeria as a democratic nation, do not allow Nigeria to become Somalia or Southern Sudan or any of those places. That's my advice. God has given you what Chief Abiola could not get. What MK Abiola could not get. Abiola won election, yet he did not become president. So what is all this madness of second time everywhere? No governor wants to do what? No president wants to do what? President Jimmy Carter was one of the best American presidents. He had only one time. Even the almighty Donald Trump today was fed packing in 2020. Now he's back. President John Dramani Mahama in Ghana was fed packing in 2016. After 8 years, he's back. So if you spend one time and Nigerians remember you for good, that is all that will profit you, sir. That's my advice to you as a brother, that look, concentrate on deliverables to Nigerians. You made promises, but now you are short on deliverables.
Chief Momodu, when the U.S. says 12 northern governors, prominent traditional rulers, and senior judges are at the center of this, challenge in Nigeria, security challenge, and are complicit, should we believe them? Do they have intelligence, or is it also exaggerated, as the Nigerian government is saying that this claim that there is Christian genocide in Nigeria is false? Should we believe the U.S. government when they begin to list names?
Look, only a pathological liar and a blind defender of our government will say it is not tempting enough to believe there has been Christian genocide. Even the president, our current president, in the past, when they were forming APC, we all supported Buhari at that time. He himself was part of the delegation that sent this type of message to America. So that's why I said the chicken has come home to roost. So people have called it law of karma, that what you do unto others can be done unto you later. But at this time, I am not ready to even blame the president or anybody. The failure of governance is too glaring for anybody to debate. So this failure, we must put behind us and rescue all of us. Man, I don't have any other country. I may have other addresses, but this is where I want to live at. Over 65 now. Today, I'm over 65. I don't want to become a Igbo. No, I want to live in Nigeria. I want my children to live peacefully in Nigeria. So we must beg our leaders. Enough of this grandstanding. Look, we all know today the executive compromised, legislature compromised, judiciary compromised, INEC. We are hoping we'll wake up and resurrect, from this deathbed where they have placed it. So how can you have a democracy if all the democratic institutions are collapsed? That's what people call a failed state.
All right, Chief.
We've all traveled a bit around the world. When you see a failed state, you will know a failed state. There are places, if you give me any money now today, I won't go there because it's a failed state. All
right. Well, Chief, we have to anchor our conversation with you here for many reasons as well. On X, Islamic cleric Sheikh Gumi is trending, and I was going to ask you about this idea of negotiating with bandits and, of course, reintegrating some of these persons into the society. But we'll have to leave it here, and thank you indeed for talking to us this morning. We'll be speaking with Chief Dele Momodu, who is a chieftain of the ADC, as well as a publisher of Vision magazine. Thank you indeed, as always, for your analysis and perspective, Chief Dele Momodu.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so from the Christian genocide claims to Anambra State, where all eyes are as we begin to count down just a few hours to the November 8 governorship elections. We're joined this hour by the Executive Director, International Press Center, Lagos, Nigeria, Mr. Larry Arogodade, who joins us live on the program. Thank you indeed for joining us on the program. Well, so many concerns. Perhaps we begin with security, Mr. Arogodade, because the police has deployed about 50 police officers to Anambra State. That's, of course, does not capture the NSCDC, DSS, and military, but yet that is still a concern. Security is still a big concern in Anambra State. So, what are you hearing?
Well, I think we're aware that thousands of security men have been deployed, particularly the police, and you could see a frenzy of activities going on. I was at the police headquarters yesterday, and of course, I saw loads of lorries, security men were armed, and that gives you the impression that they are ready to contend with the security situation. Of course, we went there partly to also talk to the Commissioner of Police in charge of the elections, Commissioner of Police Shogunle, who was busy all around. He had to dash out again. He was at CBN, where they were showing the materials to civil society organizations and other, observers. So, I mean, looking around, you really feel security, presence. But in our pre-election assessment reports, and I'm referring to the 16 civil society organizations which are operating as partners under the European Union support to democratic governance in Nigeria, we had actually identified some hotspots based on our assessment before now. And this assessment was done over about 2 to 3 months period, where some local governments were actually highlighted as possible as possible danger zones. And this report has been made public. It's been made as the security agencies to pay attention to those areas. Now, the other side of the coin also has to do with the approach of the security agencies to deployment, because it's good to have security presence, but that presence should also not become like a show of force in such a way that it discourages people from coming out, because we're concerned about voter apathy. So what we are just saying is that deploy quietly, these chances, too many checkpoints could actually discourage the people. But like I said, you really can feel security, presence in the state as we speak, right now.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you to perhaps list some of those flash points you have captured in your report. Walk us through some of those areas you have captured.
Well, I don't know whether it's since we're in the countdown to elections now to begin to mention those areas, but these
we're not discussing the parties. We're discussing the areas. So we can call the security officials to ensure that those areas, would be looked into and ensure that there's some sort of security for Nigerians resident in those areas.
Well, actually, it's virtually almost all, parts of the country. Of the states, particularly some of the local governments, which we mentioned in that report, and I could get that in a short while and make it available to you and talk about them. But we're just looking at local government areas, and the police are quite aware of this, that have a tradition of violence. Remember that there was a by-election in the States some time ago, and you had elements of violence in some parts based on that by-election. So it's on that basis that this suggestion was actually made about what needs to be done in terms of security.
Well, in other assessment reports that have come to us, we've seen some names identified. So you'd be, helping security agents as well if you're able to mention those names for us. But as a quick follow-up to that, the INEC chairman did mention that because of the inability of, the electorate to, is it register now in certain areas like Ihiala, that they can come to a central area to cast their votes. I'm not quite sure if he was talking about registration or inability to participate in the exercise due to security concern. But how satisfactory or comforting is that assurance for the people to go to that areas in terms of convenience, and then in terms of the neutrality, the security of their votes, following that approach to ensuring that the exercise goes through? How satisfactory is that to you as the civil society organization covering this election?
Well, it will have been ideal to ensure that voters or registered voters are able to vote in the areas where they registered. But if there are challenges and alternative arrangements is being made by the Independent National Electoral Commission, it should also be welcome, because at least it shows that they definitely want people to cast their vote. And what I would then be saying is that now that they have committed to that, our own interest would be to monitor the situation and ensure that this actually happens, because it will then involve a lot of logistics. And as a matter of fact, a lot of enlightenment, a lot of information. Campaigns have started, have stopped now, but at least voter education hasn't been stopped. So it will be good for INEC using and working with other stakeholders like the National Orientation Agency to focus on this set of voters and continuously provide information to them, targeting them to explain how this would happen. And I guess this is where the security deployment would also be very important to ensure that people who fall into this category are not disenfranchised in any way. Because like I keep saying, one major concern we have has to do with voter apathy, because in 2021, the turnout that was recorded in the state was the poorest, even though in this state before we had also seen people turning out to vote. This state had recorded even 40% turnout before, but it dropped drastically 4 years ago. So that is the concern that we have in this kind of situation. It would have been good to have take measures to ensure that people are able to vote where they are registered. But now that we are confronted with this situation, like I said, our interest is to ensure that INEC is able to walk the talk.
In terms of the efficiency test, we've seen the deployment of or the receipt of sensitive materials from the office of the central bank in Anambra State. But we've heard that traditionally there's always that late deployment of materials. What are you seeing on ground currently by the Commission to ensure that these, in terms of logistics, to ensure that these materials get to their locations on time and the process starts smooth sail tomorrow?
Well, so what we've also seen is that as at yesterday, what you could call, the advanced party of INEC, they were already in the various locations, configuring, beavers, and those are the crucial aspects of it to ensure that, the equipment are in good condition, they work, and they are also, deployed. Now, when it comes to deployment, because now we're looking at past elections and the elements of lateness in the arrival of materials. There are two sides to it. First, the preparedness of INEC itself, the fact that the officials are ready, they are ready with all that is needed, and they are ready to move to the various polling units from the rack centers and the rest of them. Now, they don't move unless they are accompanied by security agents. And what we observed in Edo State was the fact that INEC officials were ready, but the police were not ready because they had to first go to the headquarters, do the drill, salute, whatever they needed to do, get their own briefing. So that has been an issue for us. And what we'll be emphasizing now is that there should be better synergy in terms of deployment. It will be good if policemen and other security agents that may be needed are deployed in time. They should be on ground by the time the INEC officials are ready and move with them. And that is the only thing that could happen. On the part of INEC, we would also expect that they will spend most of today having, engagement or interactions or interfaces with the transport, that they would be making use of. Because in Anambra State, there are also areas where these materials would have to travel over water, what we normally call, riverine areas. We do have that. And these are the critical logistic, questions. But it's really about working in synergy with others. So if INEC officials are ready and the security agents are ready, as at the time the INEC officials are ready, I think there could be a better and faster deployment such that we will not experience delays when it comes to the opening of voting process, starting with accreditation.
All right. Well, we have to leave it here. I mean, just like you've captured in 2021, it's the voter apathy there plummeted to as low as 10.1%. Really, really disheartening. I hope that we see those numbers increase tomorrow. So in the Anambra, please go to the polls tomorrow and ensure that you get to vote for the governor of your choice. Well, that's a fine place to leave it this morning. Mr. Larry Arogudade is Executive Director, International Press Center, Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you indeed for your time on the program.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll still be giving you updates as they come.
All right. All right, and I'm sure you can indeed get to follow our live coverage of the Anambra governorship elections right here on Channels TV. We have updates for you, we have commentaries, we have analysis for you tomorrow. All eyes are in Anambra. But from this, we move on to something else as we get to celebrate the 65th anniversary of Ford Foundation. Bukola, you have this one.
Yes, indeed. And we have joining us to discuss this, Dr. Chichi Aniagolu, representative of the Ford Foundation. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program, madam. Dr. Chichi Aniagolu, Regional Director, Ford Foundation.
West Africa.
West Africa. Can you hear me?
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. It's been 65 years of the exploits of the Ford Foundation in West Africa. That's as old as Nigeria is. Congratulations on the anniversary.
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, indeed. Beautiful. So let's start this way. The Ford Foundation, of course, we know characteristically is in the work of inclusion, gender advocacy, justice, and it's been 65 years. And, it has worked with organizations through grants. How has this investment shaped the region's social justice and development landscape?
Thank you. 65 years is a long time, and it is actually 65 years of unbroken support to West Africa. So the Ford Foundation never left West Africa. And in that period, we have done quite a lot to support the country, making sure that we are supporting initiatives that mirror the history of the country at the time. So, for instance, at the start of our work here at independence, the challenge was how to have a workforce that will help power the new emerging country. And so the support was to training civil servants, lecturers, scholars, academics, everybody who we felt was going to be instrumental to helping the development of the country. Then the country went to war. And at the end of the war, the challenge was rebuilding the country and also, feeding the country, because a lot of the food supply and chain had been broken. And so the Ford Foundation supported the construction and the building of the IITA, the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, supported a lot of initiatives around Green Revolution, and made sure that the country was able to get back on its feet. Then in the 80s, when the challenges of HIV came in, Ford was one of the first organizations to support awareness creation, to support the fight against stigmatization, and also making sure that people who were HIV positive got drugs. And then the return to democracy was another issue. Anybody who's a human rights activist in Nigeria would have in one way or another been supported by the Ford Foundation. We were in the trenches. We supported the organizations until we were able to get the country back to democracy. And after that, now after the return to democracy, the issue was then, how do you make sure that, like we say in Nigeria, the dividends of democracy reach the people? And so the focus was on trying to make sure that the rights of people are respected, that we do not have, that inequality is reduced, and that the people are able to enjoy what anybody who is living in a democratic country supports. So the foundation has really been instrumental to the country. A lot of the policies that we have in this country that are have also done a lot of training of journalists. I'm sure that people from channels have benefited from our capacity building. Even for some we have provided equipment and the rest of it. So it's been a very holistic support to the country. But the overarching reason for it is to create a country where social justice is respected.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to capture that in my next question, but incredible work you and your team are doing right there at Ford Foundation. Your investment, I mean, we hear it totals over $500 million since 1960. But that leads me to my next question, because many argue that perhaps what the continent needs, or what Africa needs, is economic empowerment. So the big question is, why is your focus social justice?
So indeed, there's no question that Africa is struggling with economic challenges. But what we have come to learn along the way is that without social justice, economic empowerment will not work. We have had a lot of multinationals leave this country, not because they didn't have the wherewithal to run their factories or to provide the services that they were providing. But the challenge was that the enabling environment just wasn't there. So we have international companies leaving, we have local companies shutting down. And the reason behind that is because, we don't have an enabling environment. And that's what social justice does. The social justice ensures that the rule of law is obeyed, that discrimination is reduced, that inequality is reduced, because if a country has 1% billionaire and everybody else is poor, nobody's going to come and set up a factory in which they're focusing on 1%, because they need the critical mass of people to buy from them. And so if you have a country in which so many people are poor, you are not going to be able to create an environment, that will enable business. And so what social justice does is that it creates that environment. It creates an enabling environment. It ensures that people's rights are respected. It ensures that when a company comes to your country, that they know that if they have a conflict, that they can go to court and that the court will respect their rights. in a speedy manner. So without social justice, you cannot have economic empowerment. And that's why we focus on social justice. We support the government, we support civil society organizations to provide an enabling environment for Nigeria's policies, to thrive.
Yeah, that's a very, valid point there. And that leads me to the next, concern, particularly that has come through over the last 2 years. International development assistance has really reduced, particularly under the Trump administration. How has that impacted on the work of the Ford Foundation? Has it put a strain on the Ford Foundation to do more in terms of funding and support for your different areas of intervention?
Well, to start with, the Ford Foundation is an independent foundation, so we don't rely on the American government or any government to provide resources for us. We have an endowment, and that's where the money we use for the work we do around the world comes from. So directly, it does not affect our own resources. But indirectly, of course, it does, because, we're here to try and solve social problems. And philanthropy does not have enough money to do that. So the support from governments around the world, bilateral and multilateral aid, was something that we also worked with and partnered with to ensure that civil society organizations and governments around the world are able to get the resources to address the most critical challenges in the world. With the dwindling resources, a lot more people are coming to us for help, and we just don't have the resources to address every single challenge that we need. So it has created more challenges for the sector. It has created the need for more resources to be mobilized, and we don't have it. So for me, one of the things that we have been doing at the West Africa office is trying to enable and encourage African philanthropy, local philanthropy. There's a lot of giving that's going on the continent, and in Nigeria as well. Nigerians are very generous people. They are givers. But the challenge is that the giving is not done in a systematic and in an organized and coordinated way. So there's a lot of individual giving, but it's not really changing things because it is not done in a way that addresses systemic problems. So we're hoping that the Nigerian and African billionaires can step in and also support education, health, human rights, those issues that they themselves see are challenges to their business, and that they can start doing what a Ford Foundation does. The Ford Foundation, was started by Henry and Edsel Ford. These were two private individuals in America. And today we are in almost every region in the world providing support. There's absolutely no reason why an African philanthropist and high net worth individuals cannot do the same thing, if not for the world, at least for Nigeria and the African continent.
Well, Dr. Anyagulu, it's been a journey of 65 years. So I'm just wondering, perhaps, if you can paint a picture for our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world, what lessons you have learned in this journey of 65 years.
So one of the beauty of the way the Ford Foundation works is that we work with local actors. We prioritize local actors. We hardly give money to, we do, but the bulk of our funds goes to local organizations and local governments and local private sector people. And what we have learned is that they are the ones who have the answer, that this continent can really advance and change its circumstances if it believes in the power and in the capacity of its own people to understand, to analyze, and to address the challenges of the continent. The solutions are here. Africans have the solution. But if we don't, but you need a deliberate effort to really address that. And it is one that has to be open-minded, and because we don't have solutions only in one ethnic group or in one religious group. We have to be open to say we're looking for solutions to our problem, and Africans can find it. So nothing stops us from going to Uganda to get a Ugandan to support, or to go, to Zambia, or for a Zambian to get a Nigerian. Africans need to start looking in, and because we do that, we see how powerful people on the continent and how much they're able to address the challenge. That's number one. Number two, like I said already, we see that focusing on social justice is extremely important. You cannot build a nation without social justice. A country that is that has a lot of discrimination, whether it is religious, whether it is gender, whether it is with people with disability, just cannot develop. And so we have learned that you have to end discrimination. You have to end polarization. You have to end inequality if you want to develop as a nation. So that's another lesson that we have learned. On the flip side, we have learned that young people are becoming quite exasperated with democracy. A lot of young people are not seeing what we call in Nigeria the dividends of democracy. And so for many of them, they don't see what we see when we say that democracy is the best form of government. And yet we know that it is. And so the continent, the country, really needs to prioritize that hope. It's good that the government's mantra is renewed hope. We need to renew hope in democracy. We need to renew hope in our young people. They make up more than 60% of the population. And for having those kinds, if young people remain despaired, that could have grave consequences for Nigeria and for the continent. So we have to renew the hope of young people in democracy. We need to renew their hope that their countries can cater for them, that their countries, care about them, and will prioritize them in policy and in practice.
And, you mentioned some critical areas, at the start of this particular response to the last question, when you talked about discrimination, lack of inclusion and gender challenges. Speaking of which areas will the Ford Foundation be prioritizing for development in the social justice space, not just in Nigeria now, but in West Africa, when you consider some of the challenges fueling this problem? Security, for instance, which we've been talking about for pretty much the rest of the week.
So we really try to go to the core of what the challenge is, and that's what we support. In West Africa, we have three main areas that we are putting in a lot of resources. One is in democracy. We launched a $21 million fund in partnership with other philanthropic organizations like the MacArthur Foundation, the Carnegie Corporation, Open Society, and Luminate. And these organizations came together with the Ford Foundation to create what we call the West Africa Development Democracy Fund. And the idea is to reimagine democracy in the sub-region in West Africa, and to try and halt the backsliding of democracy. We're also looking at our two main areas of support are gender, racial and ethnic justice, where we are making sure that women are prioritized, and gender issues, especially gender-based violence, which is one of the critical reasons that affects women and stops women from effectively participating in political and social life. So we're addressing gender-based violence, we're especially the prevention of gender-based violence. We're also working on the natural resource and climate justice space, because we recognize that most West African countries are natural resource dependent, but it has not been serving the purpose of the people. So we're trying to ensure that communities where extraction happens benefit from those extractions. And we're also ensuring that the energy transition benefits Africa. It's not a one track for Africa. Africa is actually the least contributor to carbon emission. But of course, we know that we are victims of climate change, probably one of the worst, because we don't have the resources to address those. But more importantly, we are not looking at the justice question. The fact that extraction, whether it is fossil fuel extraction or natural or solid minerals, or what we now call the green minerals, all of it is happening in Africa. And it is devastating communities. So in a way, we're actually not transitioning, because we are going from fossil fuel extraction to green minerals extraction. And so communities are not benefiting. So what we're trying to do is, how can we make sure that the extraction that happens in communities benefit the people? And how do we ensure that this energy transition recognizes that Africa, and West Africa particularly, are natural resource dependent countries? So you can't just stop fossil fuel without taking into consideration what the implications will be. The justice questions are extremely important, and that's what it is that we are focusing on, and hoping, of course, that we can bring West African governments also to begin to prioritize the justice question in the energy transition.
And Dr. Aniagolu, non-governmental organizations that are smart will be watching you now and doing their research and dusting up their proposals in preparation for the direction that you have laid out for the organization in the next, phase. We must anchor at this point, and thank you very much for coming on the program. And congratulations on your 65th anniversary. Dr. Chichi Aniagolu is the Regional Director, West Africa, for the Ford Foundation. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, it's the final leg of our conversation here on The Morning Brief. I would just get to have some sort of soft conversation, music precisely. Well, he's a performer, songwriter, composer, and he calls himself Dwayne the Stoic.
Yes.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Kenzie.
I'd like to start with that name.
Yes.
You artists have a way of being very creative. So
yes.
Tell us by the way, you have just confirmed that you are Nigerian.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am Nigerian.
Okay.
I'm Nigerian.
Nigerian, precisely. Enugu State, yes. The cold city.
Yes, cold city state.
All right, I'm not going to tell you.
Why? What connection you have with Enugu?
No, but I have this thing for Enugu people.
Yeah.
That's because my wife is Enugu.
Lovely.
So you're my in-law.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about you and your name.
Yes.
Walk us through the
So Dwayne is from my middle name, Edwin.
Okay.
And then the Stoic, I think I had run into the word when listening to an album sometime in university, and I liked just what it suggested. Someone who kind of moved through life, with a sort of, how do I put this now, a certain look on life where it's like good or bad, you move through. But looking more into the philosophy of Stoicism, I learned that it's more about focusing on what you can control, right? Yeah. And although people think of Stoicism as just being on feeling, I think it's more about knowing that you can do life and be able to do things in moderation. Make sure you are controlling what concerns you, basically. And so with Stoicism and my name, I'm pretty much creating music for people to feel things, but not for them to dwell. Right, it's like you feel happy, you feel sad, you feel in love, you feel jealousy. All of those things are contained in the music I make, so that's why.
Yeah. Yes. And you don't do everyday music, because in this part of the world and continents, we like the boom, 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 boom. Let's go there.
Yes,
it's Friday, and Saturdays and all. But
yes.
That's not the genre of music you do.
I think I do several, but yes, I like to do a fusion because I think with the company I started and the music I make, I want to make the soundtrack of our lives. Right, and so that means I want to make music for all the moments you have. So there are some songs that you can hear in a club. I've done a few songs with DJs and producers who understand that sound. I love music in general. I've always listened to all sorts of music. Growing up, it was going from the Beatles to Oriental Brothers to the artists I knew at the time, like Asha and Two-Face and Style Plus. These are the things. So I am essentially an amalgamation of all that now. So I'm able to do songs. For my recent album now, called Master of Ballads, you have a song like I Go Nowhere, which fits in the Afro-pop genre, but then there's Time Is Money, that's more high life. But then there is a song like Shake that's just a piano ballad. Yes, so I mean, as an Igbo man, I tap into
So that explains it now, even your brand, your hair, your style, it's difficult to box you into a corner. Certainly not necessarily Afro soul, but more like, you know, soul, pop. Exactly. How do you describe your sound?
So I would say most of what I do with genres, I treat them like suggestions, right? So, but when I talk about the music I make, I'd say it's a fusion of a lot of genres, but I'll say a lot of them, the key thing is about how I write the songs, and that's why the album is called Master of Ballads, because it's more about the songwriting style. I write songs where without the music, you can look at the lyrics and still follow a story. Okay. And so I would say for me, genres are really just dependent on the song. So when I go into the studio with my longtime collaborator, Rafi, we just know we're going to make a good song. We don't know what is going to come out of it, but we know it's a good song.
And so you've gotten sync placements on Netflix, Disney. Tell us about that.
Yes, so I started a company called St. Clair Records to house my music and also the music of other artists who I think are doing multi-genre music that is important. And one thing I definitely wanted us to be able to do is earn from this music. And with you described the mainstream and breaking into that with the Nigerian space, it can be interesting. But one thing we did even as we were growing was pitch ourselves, because the music we make is universal. We make music that can work in several places, and so we're lucky to get into a Netflix production called Far From Home, and then a Disney Plus production called Madu. And it was very good for us. It was validation in many ways, but also it was good to show that, you know what, this music, this art, it can earn money as well. So it's good. Yeah.
Do you play an instrument?
Interestingly, I don't. I've always written music with in my head and gone to work with producers who then,
Okay, because for the kind of music that you do, either play the keyboard or the guitar and all of that. But let me just ask you, this, AI.
Yeah.
How are you harnessing the potentials in AI? Because it's big. I think I was in with a colleague yesterday, and we're driving in his car, and he had like a list of songs composed by AI or AI generated, and it's very difficult to differentiate which is AI and which is human.
Yeah.
So, where are we? How is AI helping you with
the music?
With your music?
Yeah.
Nothing. Not with the music. Not with the music. I think that's the thing with art and how. Even though people say that they can't tell the difference between AI songs, and I think that there will still be songs that there'll still be things that will be done only by human beings, and I think art is the last frontier. And while we will make multiple copies, because I think the part of us that wants to consume a lot is what got us to a place where we're like, oh, you know what? Because there are a lot of human artists, too many, in fact. We can't all discover them, and now we are like, oh, but no, we need more songs. Do we really? And what is the quality of these songs that are now being created, as templates, really, of these things? And one thing I will say as a Nigerian artist is that one thing I want us to pay more attention to is how to protect the artists, protect the people who it's their work that's being fed to the AI to create this music, which means the AI of its own self cannot, and so it's like, I am very much an advocate for artists, and I think that with AI across the world, I know that people are already having many conversations around it. I would say how it can be useful to me, like as a business person, I mean, there's many parts of, planning, project management, a couple of things you can use technology for, but I think in the art, it needs to still come from, artists.
And so you're touring. You talked about Master of Ballads.
Yes.
I've also listened to Heaven is Home. And I'm curious about your creative process and the themes, that form much of what you compose. What are your influences and what is your perfect creativity environment?
I would say influences with the album, there was a wide range. Like I mentioned with seeing a song like Time Is Money, I would directly just link that to the high life music I grew up listening to, and even some of the more modern ones, like with Flavor and a couple other artists. And I would say, but across the album, influences from artists like Adele, you know, Beyonce, Sam Smith, people who I think have been able to put a lot of emotion into the music they make. Like, and with the tour, it's me taking this album on the road. Last year I did a tour for the EP Love Lane, which spawned a couple hits for us that, you know, went viral, and it was very validating again to see that happen, where we're able to bridge creating this alternative music, but then there's a mainstream appeal to the music, because again, it's all kinds of music we're making. And the Master of Ballads tour is going to be an 11-city Pan-African tour. And we're starting with Abuja on the 5th of December. And I'm so excited. We just finished. I just came back from Abuja, actually. We were making prep. And Lagos on the 3rd of January. And following that, we're likely going to cover some of West Africa, like Cotonou and Accra, and then Nairobi for sure, and then get into South Africa as well. I think the thing about the way I think about this music and how we are going to move forward is that I'm very much looking forward to all the collaboration that will happen. We're going to all the cities, because with last year, for example, every stop I'm making, many artists are joining me, and it's a beautiful experience. So I'm looking forward to the Master of Ballads tour, and I hope I see you there as well. Yes.
Well, Kelly will be there, right?
Yes.
In Lagos, January 3rd.
January 3rd, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make sure. I need you and my sister to come.
Right?
We'll be there. We'll be there. So I'm just wondering how you intend to navigate the language barriers. For instance, if you go to areas such as Benin Republic.
So I speak French. So I've been to Cotonou.
You speak French?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes, it's something that I always thank my parents for. The secondary school I went to was one where they tried to encourage a bilingual thing. So I spent like a year plus of my secondary school in between Benin Republic and Togo. Kind of used that and so, of course, I'm rusty, but every time I go back, I get a chance to.
So I wonder how your Nigerian parents took the decision of you deciding to delve into music.
It took a very strategic convincing, because I understood my parents. They were never the kind to discourage me from these things. Because, for example, my father, while in university, had dabbled in DJing and just loves music a lot. But of course, now he's a consultant and does in the supply chain logistics industry. And my mother is a fine art teacher. They would always be practical. Yeah. And so even when
so they're both creatives.
Exactly.
Oh.
But they understood that, you know what, because I only recently started doing, I've said recently in the last 2 years, doing music full time. I've always kept a job, either working in the pension industry as a tech person, to working in advertising, to working in media. I was editor-in-chief at Zikoko for a bit, wrote as senior editor at Tech Kabar for a bit. So I've done, and that's what encouraged me to do the work of starting a label, because I've worked in so many other, parts. And so my parents, when it came time to make each of these decisions from my first album, it was to sit them down and go, I've thought about this is how it's going to go. And they're confident in me. And so thankfully it's paid off, in that I've been able to constantly have them see that, okay, this is something I'm doing in the best way I can. So, yeah.
So you do have your own label?
Yeah. Yes, it's called St. Clair Records.
Interesting, because, divisions between artists and record labels is one of the challenges that the industry
Yes, it's one of the things I'm hoping to change, to fix, the idea.
But how much stability does that bring to your own work?
To my work? I think it brings quite a bit of stability, because it gives me a chance to not be held down by the things that people usually complain about with traditional label deals. And I want to have that be not just for me, but for everybody who's signed to my label.
Because I was going to ask that. Stability for you, but how about those?
We operate.
There's always one clause somewhere that you guys get to hide.
Exactly. So I actually want to talk about why I think what we need a lot of in this industry now is well-run indie labels. Because independent labels are able to, because I am operating from a point of an artist who knows an artist's pains. And so I'm making sure that the system I'm creating is able to make sure artists don't feel boxed in. For example, with my label, there is no, say on what exactly the artist must create, but it's about making sure that whatever is brought to us, we amplify. And that's how I think we should progress. And there's no draconian, or you can't do something for a couple of years, or all those kind of things. I don't think those are necessary. I think that there are ways to do this thing ethically, and we're going to try.
You know, listening to you talk and even listening to your music, you get the feel that, you know, probably another John Legend with
really
a very exotic feel to your music.
Yes.
But we hope that you'll be doing something original that, you know, gives us a feel of Enugu.
Yeah, of course. You should listen to Time Is Money. It's a high life song that I think would put you in that you're back in the East.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
So just before we go, we have to go now. We are absolutely pressed for time. For an Enugu man,
yes,
Abacha or Okpa, which one does it for you?
Okpa.
Okpa.
Yes.
Anything. Let us share the grace.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, so
trying some Okpa very soon.
Yes,
yeah, you have
I
to.
miss it. Yeah.
All right, we wish you all the best with your tour.
Thank you so much.
The Master of Ballads tour, you've called it.
Yeah.
Dwayne the Stoic, is a Nigerian singer, songwriter, and composer. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, that does it for us here on the program. Thank you indeed for watching. We have to go now, but we'll leave you with some sort of his music just to ensure that your weekend starts on a very soft note. I am Kelly Egiga, and if you have to drink while driving, it absolutely has to be water.
And remember, it's less than 24 hours to the Anambra governorship election. Channels Television has got you covered. Our studios will be open and we'll be bringing you all of the updates tomorrow. Thank you so much for being there all through the week, and have yourselves a blessed weekend. I am Bukola Koka.
Waited for this time. I've been hoping for someone like you. Hope you remember.